What's up, Amelia from Revenge Rewired here. Today's story, absolutely wild. Hit subscribe so you never miss one. Marcus and I had been married for 14 years when I discovered the affair. What broke me wasn't just the betrayal, it was the cold calculation behind it. Within a week of me finding out, he'd filed for divorce. Within 2 weeks, he'd moved out and retained Richard Chen, the most aggressive divorce attorney in the city. Within 3 weeks, his entire financial narrative had changed. We'd built the restaurant business together. ID handled the books for the first 5 years while working my nursing job to keep us afloat. When the restaurants finally started turning a profit, Marcus insisted I quit nursing to enjoy life. I'd been hesitant, but he'd been so convincing. "You've earned this," he'd said. "Let me take care of you now." What I didn't realize was that he was removing me from the financial picture entirely. The deposition happened on a cold Tuesday morning in March. I sat across from Marcus and his lawyer in a sterile conference room that smelled like industrial carpet cleaner and old coffee. Richard Chen spread documents across the mahogany table with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Tax returns showing losses, bank statements with minimal balances, vendor invoices marked unpaid in angry red stamps. "Mrs. Chen," Richard began, he insisted on using my married name like a weapon. "My client is prepared to offer you a very generous settlement given the circumstances." Marcus looked appropriately devastated. He'd even grown a beard to look more haggard. "The restaurants are gone, Sarah," he said, his voice catching. "The pandemic destroyed everything. I'm drowning in debt. The landlords are threatening to sue me. Vendors are circling. I can barely keep my apartment." He slid a folder across to me. Inside was a settlement offer, $75,000 total. For 14 years of marriage, for the business I'd helped build, for the life we'd created together. "The restaurant business destroyed me," Marcus continued, and I noticed he'd actually managed to make his eyes look watery. "I had to close all 3 locations. The Riverside location, foreclosed, downtown, lease terminated. Even the original place on Maple Street gone. I'm barely surviving on consulting gigs." Richard picked up the narrative seamlessly. "My client is offering you this settlement out of pure goodwill. Frankly, Mrs. Chen, there's nothing left to divide. The business assets were liquidated to pay creditors. The remaining debt exceeds any equity by a factor of 3 to 1. You'd be walking away with debt, not assets." He pushed another document toward me. "This is a complete accounting prepared by my client's CPA. As you can see, the marital estate has a negative net worth of approximately $240,000. Mr. Chen is personally assuming all of this debt. The $75,000 he's offering you is essentially him paying you to walk away from obligations you'd otherwise share." I looked at the numbers. They were impressively detailed. 3 years of declining revenue, equipment loans, vendor debts, lease obligations, legal fees from the closures. It looked legitimate. It looked devastating. "Be grateful he's offering anything," Richard said, and there was something in his tone of smugness that told me he thought this was already won. "Most men in his position would insist on splitting the debt. Mr. Chen is being extraordinarily generous." Marcus reached across the table like he wanted to take my hand, then thought better of it. "Sarah, I know I hurt you. I know I destroyed our marriage. But I don't want to destroy your future too. Take this money. Start over, please. I can't give you what isn't there." I looked at him, really looked at him. The beard, the tired eyes, the wrinkled shirt that was probably a costume choice. The entire performance was almost impressive. I nodded sympathetically. "I understand this must be so difficult for you," I said softly. "Losing everything you built." Marcus actually looked relieved. Richard started organizing papers, clearly preparing to wrap this up. "I'd like a few days to think about it," I added. "This is a lot to process." "Of course," Richard said smoothly. "But I should mention that this offer expires in 72 hours. After that, we'll be forced to proceed to full litigation, which will only add to the costs that would come out of any settlement." I gathered my things slowly, playing the part of the overwhelmed, defeated wife. What neither of them knew was that ID started preparing for this moment 3 months earlier, long before Marcus had even filed. The day I'd discovered the affair, I'd done something that surprised even me. Instead of confronting him immediately, instead of screaming or crying or making a scene, I'd gone to my laptop and started taking screenshots, bank statements, tax documents, business filings. everything I could access from our shared accounts. I'd uploaded them all to a secure cloud drive Marcus knew nothing about. Then I'd called my friend Jennifer, who worked in the fraud division of a major bank. I need a recommendation, I'd told her. The best forensic accountant you know. Someone who specializes in finding hidden assets. That's weirdly specific, Jennifer had said. Is Marcus just a name, Jen? Please. She'd given me a name, Patricia Wong, a forensic accountant who'd worked with the FBI on white-collar crime cases before going private. She's expensive, Jennifer had warned. But if there's money hidden, Patricia will find it. I'd used my emergency fund $15,000 ID, kept separate from our joint accounts, to retain Patricia the next day. I'd met her in a coffee shop far from our neighborhood, and I'd brought every document I'd managed to download. Patricia had listened to my story without interruption, making occasional notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she'd asked one question. Do you want to know the truth, or do you want to believe the best about him? The truth, I'd said immediately. Good, because this is going to get ugly. Men don't usually hide money unless they've been planning something for a while. That had been 3 months ago. For 12 weeks, Patricia had been working quietly, tracing financial records, filing subpoenas through her attorney contacts, following digital breadcrumbs through corporate registries and tax filings. I'd gone about my life normally, pretending I didn't know about the affair, letting Marcus think he was being clever. And now, sitting in this deposition with his performance of poverty, I had a 127-page report locked in my attorney's safe, a report that told a very different story than the one Marcus was selling. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. Thank you for your time, I said. I'll be in touch. As I walked out, I heard Richard say to Marcus, that went well. She'd take it. They always do when they see the numbers. I smiled to myself all the way to my car. Patricia Huang's office was in a nondescript building in the financial district, wedged between a tax preparation service and a bail bondsman. Nothing about it screamed elite forensic accountant, which was exactly how Patricia liked it. People don't hide money from offices that look threatening, she'd told me during our first meeting. They hide money because they think no one's smart enough to find it. When I'd first hired her, Patricia had been blunt about the process. Most people think forensic accounting is like TV. We hack into secret databases and find smoking guns overnight. Reality is much more boring. It's tax returns, bank statements, corporate filings, property records. It's comparing what people say they have versus what the paperwork shows they have. It's following the paper trail until the lies become obvious. She'd started with the documents. I'd given her 3 years of joint tax returns, bank statements, business profit and loss statements. Then she'd used her network to pull additional records, corporate filings with the Secretary of State, property tax records, business license applications, UCC filings showing secured loans and assets. Here's what caught my attention immediately. Patricia had told me during our second meeting, spreading documents across her conference table. Your husband's restaurants allegedly failed during the pandemic, right? All 3 locations closed. That's what he said. But look at this. She pointed to a business license renewal. The Maple Street location renewed its health permit 6 months ago. You don't renew health permits for closed restaurants. That costs $800. And here, she pulled up a screen on her laptop. The state's online portal shows active sales tax payments for that location. Last payment, 3 weeks ago. I'd felt my stomach drop. So it's still operating. It's definitely still something. But here's where it gets interesting. Patricia had pulled out a corporate filing. For months before your husband filed for divorce, he registered a new LLC called River Holdings Management. It's registered to his brother, David Chen. But look at the registered agent address. She'd highlighted an address on the form. I recognized it immediately. It was Marcus's accountant's office. River Holdings Management has a federal tax ID number, which means it's filing taxes. And when I cross-referenced that tax ID with the state's business database, guess what I found? Over the next hour, Patricia had walked me through what she'd discovered. Marcus hadn't closed the restaurants, he'd transferred them. Each location was now operating under a different LLC, all registered to his brother David. The Maple Street location was now RHM Hospitality 1. The downtown location was RHM Hospitality 2. The Riverside location supposedly foreclosed was actually RHM Hospitality 3. But the property records show foreclosure on Riverside, I'd said, confused. They show a foreclosure filing, Patricia corrected. That's different. The bank filed paperwork to start foreclosure proceedings. But if you dig deeper, she pulled up another document. The property was purchased at auction by an entity called Chen Family Trust. Want to guess who the trustee is? Davidji? Bingo! Your husband let his restaurant go into foreclosure, then had his brother buy it at auction, probably for a fraction of what it was worth, and then reopened it under a new name. Legally clean, financially fraudulent. The pattern was consistent across all three locations. Close the restaurant under one entity, transfer the assets to a new entity controlled by his brother, reopen under a new name. The equipment, the customer lists, the recipes, the staff, everything the same, just different paperwork. The genius of this, Patricia had explained, is that when you look at Marcus's personal finances, it looks like he lost everything. The original LLCs show massive debt and dissolution, but the actual assets, the operating restaurants, are hidden in his brother's name. But that was just the beginning. As Patricia dug deeper, she found 4 additional LLCs, all registered to David Chen, all connected to Marcus through a web of payments and transfers. There was RHM Properties, which owned 2 rental properties generating $6,000 monthly income. There was RHM Consulting, which received $15,000 monthly from a national restaurant chain for consulting services. Services Patricia traced back to Marcus through email records she desubpoenaed. Then there was RHM Investments, which held a portfolio of stocks and bonds worth approximately $680,000, funded by systematic transfers from the original restaurant accounts over a 2-year period. And finally, RHM Storage Solutions, which appeared to be a warehouse facility that held all the equipment Marcus had claimed was repossessed by creditors. He's been planning this divorce for at least 2 years, Patricia had said during our most recent meeting, just 3 days before the deposition. Look at the timeline. The first LLC was registered 26 months ago. The first asset transfer happened 23 months ago. He has been systematically moving money out of the marital estate and into entities you have no legal claim to. She'd shown me the money trail. Restaurant profits would go into the original business accounts, then get transferred to David Chen as supposed management fees or consulting payments or loan repayments. Once in David's name, the money would flow into one of the 5 LLCs. The beauty of the scheme was that each individual transfer looked legitimate. $5,000 here for consulting, $10,000 there for a loan repayment. But when you add it up over 2 years, Patricia said, spreading out a spreadsheet, it's $3.2 million. That's how much money has flowed out of your marital estate into these shell companies. I'd stared at the number, unable to process it. $3.2 million. The restaurants were highly profitable, Patricia explained. Your husband was right that the pandemic hurt business, but it didn't destroy it. Revenue dipped about 30%, but they remained profitable throughout. He was just hiding the profits. Patricia had organized everything into a comprehensive report. Bank records showing transfers, corporate filings showing ownership structures, property records showing asset holdings, tax returns, both the ones Marcus had filed jointly with me and the ones David had filed for the LLCs, which Patricia had subpoenaed through her attorney contacts. The smoking gun, Patricia said, pulling out one final document, is this email. It was from Marcus to David. Dated 18 months ago. Transfer confirmed. Restaurant equipment moved to RHM Storage. S doesn't check the business accounts anymore, so we're clear to proceed with phase 2. Attorney says to keep everything in your name until after the divorce is final. Then we can restructure. This way she can't touch any of it. I'd read it 3 times. The casual cruelty of it. S doesn't check the business accounts anymore. Had made me feel physically sick. He'd planned this, every step, getting me to quit my job, taking over the finances completely, moving the money, filing for divorce, the whole performance of poverty. Will this hold up in court? I'd asked. Patricia had smiled. Sarah, I've testified in 43 divorce cases. I've worked with the FBI on asset hiding schemes. This report will absolutely hold up in court. More than that, what your husband has done hiding assets, filing false financial disclosures under oath, that's fraud. The judge won't just award you a larger settlement. He could face sanctions, possibly criminal charges. That had been 3 days ago. I'd spent the deposition watching Marcus perform, knowing exactly what Patricia had found, waiting for the right moment to strike. Now, sitting in my attorney's office the morning after the deposition, I watched as Lisa Martinez, my divorce attorney, read through Patricia's report for the 3rd time. This is extraordinary, Lisa said finally. I've seen hidden assets before, but this level of planning, this many shell companies. Sarah, your husband committed fraud. Extensive, premeditated fraud. Can we use this in court? Use it, Sarah. This report doesn't just win your case, it destroys the transfers, the emails, the fake foreclosures. When a judge sees this level of deception, they don't just split assets fairly, they punish the person who tried to hide them. Lisa started making notes. We have a hearing scheduled for next week on temporary support. That's when we present this. I'll file a motion to compel discovery of all these LLCs. We'll subpoena David Chen to testify. We'll bring Patricia in as an expert witness. And we'll ask the judge to sanction Marcus for filing fraudulent financial disclosures. What about the $75,000 settlement offer? Lisa smiled. What settlement offer? That expires tomorrow, and we're not taking it. We're going to court, and we're going to show the judge exactly what your husband has been hiding. The hearing took place in Judge Sarah Thornton's courtroom on a humid Thursday morning. Judge Thornton had a reputation 20 years on the bench, former prosecutor, zero tolerance for liars. She was exactly who we wanted for this case. Marcus and Richard Chen sat at the defendant's table, both looking confident. Marcus wore a gray suit that looked slightly too big, another element of his poverty costume. Richard had a leather portfolio that probably cost more than the settlement offer they'd made me. I sat with Lisa at the plaintiff's table. Between us was a file box containing Patricia's report, supporting documentation, and exhibits. Patricia herself sat in the gallery, ready to testify. Judge Thornton reviewed the motions before her. We rehear on plaintiff's motion to compel discovery and defendant's motion to approve settlement agreement. Mr. Chen, your motion first. Richard stood smoothly. Thank you, Your Honor. As the court can see from the filed financial disclosures, my client has been devastated by the pandemic's impact on his restaurant business. All 3 locations have closed. The marital estate has negative equity. My client has generously offered Mrs. Chen $75,000 to settle this matter, taking on all marital debt himself. We ask the court to approve this settlement as fair and equitable given the financial circumstances. He made it sound so reasonable, so final. Judge Thornton looked at me. Ms. Martinez, your response. Lisa stood. Your Honor, we oppose the settlement and have filed a motion to compel discovery of assets we believe the defendant has fraudulently concealed with the court's permission. I'd like to present evidence that Mr. Chen has systematically hidden approximately $3.2 million in marital assets through a series of shell companies. Richard actually laughed. Your Honor, this is absurd. My client has provided complete financial disclosures under oath. These allegations are unfounded, and Mr. Chen, Judge Thornton, interrupted, her voice sharp. Ms. Martinez hasn't finished. Continue, Counselor. Thank you, Your Honor. We've retained Patricia Huang, a forensic accountant with 15 years of experience, including 8 years with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. Ms. Huang has prepared a comprehensive report documenting the defendant's asset concealment scheme. We'd like to present her findings. Judge Thornton leaned back. I'll hear it. Call your witness. Patricia took the stand and was sworn in. Lisa established her credentials, the FBI work, the 43 divorce cases, the fraud investigations. Richard objected twice, both times overruled. Ms. Huang, Lisa began, did you conduct a forensic accounting investigation into the defendant's finances? I did. Over a 3-month period, I reviewed tax returns, bank records, corporate filings, property records, and email communications related to Mr. Chen's business interests. What did you find? Patricia pulled out a bound report. I found that Mr. Chen has concealed approximately $3.2 million in marital assets through 5 limited liability companies registered to his brother, David Chen. These companies own and operate the 3 restaurants Mr. Chen claimed were closed, plus 2 rental properties, an investment portfolio, and a storage facility containing restaurant equipment he claimed was repossessed. Marcus had gone completely pale. I watched his hands grip the edge of the table. Let's start with the restaurants, Lisa said. Mr. Chen testified that all 3 locations closed. What did you discover? Patricia referred to her report. The 3 restaurants did close under their original business names. However, within weeks of each closure, New LLCs were registered by David Chen. These LLCs reopened the restaurants at the same locations, with the same equipment, and in some cases, the same staff. The Maple Street location, for example, closed as Chen's Kitchen in April 2023 and reopened as RHM Hospitality 1 in May 2023. She pulled out exhibit side-by-side photos of the restaurants with different signs but identical interiors, business license renewals, health permit applications. The defendant claimed the Riverside location was foreclosed. What actually happened? The property entered foreclosure proceedings, yes, but at the foreclosure auction, it was purchased by the Chen Family Trust, trustee David Chen, for $340,000, substantially below market value. It reopened 3 weeks later as RHM Hospitality 3. The restaurant has been continuously operating and generating revenue, but that revenue goes to David Chen, not to Marcus Chen. Lisa handed Patricia another exhibit. Is this a fair summary of the revenue generated by these 3 restaurants over the past 18 months? Yes, combined revenue of approximately $1.8 million, with net profits of approximately $420,000. Richard was on his feet. Your Honor, this is speculation. These businesses are owned by the defendant's brother, not the defendant. There's no evidence, Mr. Chen, Judge Thornton said coldly. You'll have your chance to cross-examine. Sit down, Lisa continued. Ms. Huang, how did you trace these assets back to Mr. Chen? Through financial transfers and email communications. Over a 2-year period, Mr. Chen transferred approximately $2.1 million from his restaurant business accounts to accounts controlled by his brother. These transfers were characterized as consulting fees, management fees, and loan repayments. But there's no documentation supporting any legitimate business purpose for these payments. Patricia pulled out bank records highlighting dozens of transfers, $15,000 here, $25,000 there, each one with a vague notation. Additionally, I obtained email communications through subpoena. May I read from one of them? Please, Lisa said. Patricia read Marcus's email aloud. Transfer confirmed. Restaurant equipment moved to RHM storage. S doesn't check the business accounts anymore, so we clear to proceed with phase 2. The attorney says to keep everything in your name until after the divorce is final, then we can restructure. This way she can't touch any of it. The courtroom went silent. Marcus looked like he might be sick. Who is S in this email? Lisa asked. Sarah Chen, the plaintiff. And what is phase 2? Based on subsequent transfers and corporate filings, phase 2 appears to be the systematic transfer of all remaining business assets into LLCs, controlled by David Chen. Timed to occur after Mr. Chen filed for divorce. Lisa walked Patricia through the remaining LLCs, the rental properties generating $6,000 monthly, the consulting company receiving $15,000 monthly from a national chain, the investment portfolio worth $680,000, the storage facility holding equipment. In total, Ms. Huang, what is the value of assets you've identified that Mr. Chen failed to disclose? Approximately $3.2 million in liquid assets and ongoing business interests. This does not include the increased value of the plaintiff's share of Social Security benefits or pension accounts that may have been affected by unreported income. Lisa turned to the judge. Your Honor, we have 37 exhibits supporting Ms. Huang's findings. Bank records, corporate filings, property records, tax returns for the LLCs, email communications, and photographic evidence. The defendant has committed extensive fraud, filing false financial disclosures under oath, and systematically concealing millions in marital assets. Judge Thornton looked at Richard. Cross-examination. Mr. Chen. Richard stood slowly. He looked at Patricia, then at the file box of exhibits, then at Marcus. No questions, Your Honor. It was a surrender. He knew there was no defending this. Judge Thornton turned to Marcus. Mr. Chen, stand up. Marcus stood on shaking legs. Did you file financial disclosures in this case, swearing that you'd disclosed all assets? Yes, but I can explain. Did you testify in a deposition that your restaurants were closed and you were basically bankrupt? The businesses were struggling, and Mr. Chen, I've been on this bench for 20 years. I've seen people hide assets in divorce cases. But this, she gestured to the exhibits, this is one of the most extensive fraud schemes I've encountered. You didn't just fail to disclose assets. You created an elaborate corporate structure specifically to hide assets from your wife. You transferred millions of dollars out of the marital estate, You lied under oath. You made a settlement offer based on fraudulent representations. She turned to her clerk. I want an order to show cause why Mr. Chen should not be held in contempt. I want all 5 LLCs added as parties to this case. I want David Chen deposed within 10 days. And I want a full accounting of every transfer, every asset, and every dollar that moved through these shell companies. Your Honor, Richard began, my client, your client, committed fraud, Mr. Chen, and I suspect you knew about it. I'll be referring this matter to the State Bar for investigation of your conduct as well. Richard went pale. Judge Thornton looked at Marcus. As for your settlement offer of $75,000, motion denied. In fact, given the level of fraud here, I'm inclined to award Mrs. Chen more than 50% of the marital estate. You tried to hide $3.2 million. You're going to pay for that decision. The next 2 months were a flurry of legal activity. David Chen was deposed and, facing potential criminal charges himself, turned over complete records of all 5 LLCs. The forensic accounting revealed even more than Patricia's initial investigational transfers, unreported income, tax fraud. Marcus's attorney withdrew from the case, citing ethical concerns. Marcus hired a new attorney who immediately tried to negotiate a settlement. We declined. Final hearing took place in late June. Judge Thornton had reviewed all the evidence, all the depositions, all the financial records. Her ruling was swift and brutal. This court finds that Marcus Chen systematically concealed marital assets totaling $3.2 million as a sanction for this fraud, and to deter similar conduct, the court awards Mrs. Chen 70% of all identified assets, including 70% ownership interest in all 5 LLCs. She continued through the details. The restaurants would be transferred to a new LLC, with me holding 70% ownership. Marcus would be required to buy out my share at fair market value, approximately $1.4 million within 90 days. Or I could force a sale. The rental properties, $180,000 to me. The investment portfolio, $476,000 to me. The consulting company, 70% of future revenue until the buyout was complete. Additionally, Judge Thornton said, Mr. Chen is ordered to pay Mrs. Chen's legal fees, the total. I received approximately $2.3 million in cash and assets. Marcus kept the remaining businesses but was saddled with debt and facing potential criminal prosecution. David Chen was also sanctioned $25,000 for his role in the scheme and had to pay substantial back taxes on the unreported income flowing through the LLCs. Marcus tried to appeal, but his new attorney withdrew that appeal after reviewing the evidence. The settlement was final. 3 months after the final hearing, I received a check for $1.87 million, the buyout of my share of the businesses, minus what I'd already received from the investment accounts and property sales. I deposited it and sat in my car in the bank parking lot, staring at the receipt. Patricia called me that afternoon. Did you get the check? I did. How does it feel? Surreal. I keep thinking about that deposition. That's why they hide assets, Patricia said. They count on you being too overwhelmed, too emotional, too financially unsophisticated to question their numbers. They count on you trusting them, or being afraid of fighting back. I almost didn't hire you, I admitted. $15,000 seemed like so much money. I thought, what if I'm wrong? What if there really is nothing? But you weren't wrong. No, I wasn't. The last I heard, Marcus was managing one restaurant, the downtown location, and struggling to keep it profitable while paying off the massive legal judgments against him. The Riverside location was sold to settle tax debts. The Maple Street location was sold to pay his attorney fees. His career as a restaurateur in our city was effectively over. No one wanted to do business with someone who'd committed such obvious fraud. His reputation was destroyed. As for me, I used part of the settlement to go back to school for my nurse practitioner license. I bought a small condo with a view of the river. I invested the rest conservatively, working with a financial advisor Patricia recommended. And I learned a lesson I'll never forget. When someone tells you there's nothing to find, when they perform poverty while you know they once had wealth, when they offer you crumbs and call it generosity, trust your instincts. Hire an expert. Follow the money, because the truth leaves a paper trail. It always does. You just have to be willing to look for it.